Olivia Chen turned the key in the lock of Sweet Haven Bakery and felt the familiar weight of exhaustion settle onto her shoulders. The evening light filtered through the storefront windows, casting long shadows across the empty display cases that had once been filled with her creations. She walked past the vintage wooden tables, each one a reminder of the dream she had poured her savings into 3 years ago. The numbers on her laptop screen blurred together as she sat at her favorite corner table, the one with the wobbly leg she had never fixed. Bills, invoices, loan payments, everything demanded attention she could barely give. Her phone showed 8:47 in the evening, and the only thing she had eaten all day was a croissant. She had burned that morning during the early rush. Her best friend Monica had called twice, probably to check on her again, but Olivia could not handle another conversation about closing the bakery. Not tonight. She needed food, silence, and maybe a miracle. Though she had stopped believing in those around the same time, her supplier raised prices for the 3rd time this year. The wrong button. Online ordering app glowed on her phone screen as she scrolled through options. Chinese food seemed too heavy, pizza too predictable. She settled on Thai food from the place 2 blocks away, ordering pad see ew and spring rolls. Comfort food that reminded her of happier times when her mother would take her to that little restaurant in Chinatown. 40 minutes later, the intercom buzzed with its characteristic scratchy sound. Olivia practically jumped from her chair, her stomach making its protests known. She pressed the button without checking the video screen, something she did 100 times a week with deliveries for the bakery. "Finally, come on up," she said. Already reaching for her wallet, she propped open the bakery door and stood in the doorway, expecting to see the familiar delivery bag. Instead, she heard footsteps on the stairs, heavier than usual, and then a man appeared on the landing. He was tall, with dark hair slightly disheveled from the wind outside, and he carried a bouquet of pink peonies in one hand. He wore a gray sweater over a collared shirt, and his brown eyes widened when he saw her. "Jessica?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of confused hope. Olivia stared at him, then at the flowers, then back at him. Her brain tried to make sense of the situation, but came up empty. She was wearing her work clothes, a flower-dusted apron over jeans, and a faded bakery t-shirt. Her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "The revelation? I think you have the wrong place," Olivia said slowly, noticing how the man's confident expression began to crumble into something resembling panic. "This is 412 Maple Street, apartment to be," he asked, checking his phone. "No, this is Sweet Haven Bakery, street level. Apartment to be is upstairs, next entrance over. The buzzers are right next to each other. People mix them up constantly." The man looked down at the flowers in his hand as if seeing them for the first time. His face went through several shades of red before settling on something close to burgundy. "Oh no, I am so sorry. I was supposed to meet someone for a blind date, and when you buzzed me up I thought—" He trailed off, running his free hand through his hair and making it stick up even more. "This is mortifying." Despite her exhaustion and hunger, Olivia felt a smile tugging at her lips. There was something endearing about his genuine embarrassment. The way he looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "I was expecting Thai food, so we are both disappointed," she said. And the tension broke. An honest conversation, he laughed. A real laugh that filled the empty bakery with warmth. "I am James, by the way. James Mitchell, currently winning the award for most awkward human in the city." "Accidental buzzer of wrong people?" She held out her hand and he shook it, still holding the peonies in his other hand. "These were supposed to make a good impression," James said, looking at the flowers with a mixture of amusement and despair. "Now they are just evidence of my inability to read building numbers correctly. They are beautiful, though. Peonies are my favorite, really." His face brightened slightly. "I spent 20 minutes at the flower shop trying to decide between these and roses. The woman there said peonies meant good fortune and prosperity." "I could use some of that," Olivia muttered, glancing back at her laptop with its depressing spreadsheet still visible on the screen. James followed her gaze and seemed to notice the bakery for the first time. Really notice it? His eyes traveled over the exposed brick walls, the chalkboard menu, the professional ovens visible through the kitchen doorway, and the scattered papers on her table. "The invitation you own this place?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine interest. "For now," Olivia said, surprising herself with the honesty. "Though if things do not turn around soon, I might be looking for a new career." Something shifted in James's expression, a softening around his eyes. "I know that feeling. Starting over is terrifying." Before she could respond, her stomach produced a sound that could only be described as aggressive. James's eyebrows shot up, and then he started laughing again. "Okay, here is a completely insane idea," he said, holding up the peonies. "I have reservations at a French bistro in 15 minutes. My date just texted that she is not coming. You are clearly starving. I am apparently terrible at reading building directories, and we are both having rough nights. Would you possibly want to join me for dinner? No pressure, no expectations, just to people who could use a decent meal, and maybe some conversation that does not involve spreadsheets or failed blind dates." Olivia knew she should say no. Every sensible part of her brain said that you do not go to dinner with strange men who show up at your door by accident. But there was something in his eyes, a kindness, mixed with his own vulnerability, that made her pause. Plus, her Thai food was probably not coming anyway. "You know what?" she heard herself say. "Yes, but I need 10 minutes to change out of my flower-covered clothes and lock up properly." The smile that spread across James's face was worth every bit of the risk. "Take 15. I will wait right here." "And Olivia, thank you for saying yes. You are saving me from eating alone and feeling sorry for myself," which was definitely where this evening was headed. She hurried to the back room where she kept a change of clothes, her heart doing something strange and fluttery in her chest. As she pulled on clean jeans and a soft blue sweater, she caught sight of her reflection in the small mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes brighter than they had been in months. Maybe miracles still existed after all. The French bistro was called La Petite Maison. It's tucked between a bookshop and a vintage clothing store on a quiet street. Olivia had passed 100 times, but never entered. Warm amber light spilled from the windows, and the sound of quiet jazz music drifted out each time the door opened. James held the door for her. She caught the scent of roasted garlic and fresh bread that made her mouth water instantly. The hostess greeted James with a knowing smile, clearly recognizing him from his reservation, and led them to a small table near the window. White tablecloth, a single candle flickering between them, and the kind of intimate atmosphere that usually accompanied actual dates. Olivia felt suddenly nervous, smoothing down her sweater and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. "This is really nice," she said, accepting the menu from the hostess. "You had good taste in blind date locations," James laughed, a sound she was already starting to recognize and appreciate. "I researched for 2 hours, read every review, looked at every photo. I wanted to make a good impression on someone I had never met. Now here I am with someone completely different, and honestly, I am more relaxed than I have been all week." Breaking the ice, the waiter appeared with water and took their drink orders. James ordered a bottle of red wine without hesitation, then looked at Olivia with slight panic. "Sorry, I should have asked. Do you drink wine?" "I just assumed, and that was rude." "Wine is perfect," Olivia assured him, finding his nervousness oddly charming. "I have been running on coffee and stress for so long, I forgot what it feels like to actually unwind." "Tell me about it." "I moved here 6 weeks ago, started a new job 4 weeks ago. I had been living in a half-impact apartment, eating takeout, and pretending I have my life together." He opened his menu, then closed it again. "The Kako Ving here is incredible, if you trust the recommendation of someone who clearly cannot navigate basic building layouts." Olivia laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like months. "I trust you, and I will have whatever you are having because I am too hungry to make decisions." The waiter returned with wine. James ordered for both of them. And suddenly, they were alone again, with nothing but candlelight and the weight of potential conversation between them. Olivia expected awkwardness, the usual first meeting small talk that felt forced and uncomfortable. Instead, James leaned forward with genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Sharing dreams and struggles, so tell me about your bakery," he said. "What made you want to open it?" The question opened something inside Olivia she had not realized was locked. She told him about growing up watching her grandmother bake, how the kitchen had been the heart of their home. She explained her degree in business, the corporate job she had hated, and the leap of faith she had taken 3 years ago with her savings and a small business loan. "It was supposed to be my dream come true," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. And for the first year, it was. I had regular customers, people who came in every morning for their coffee and croissant. I knew their names, their orders, their stories. But then the rent increased, ingredient costs went through the roof, and a new chain coffee shop opened 2 blocks away with prices I cannot compete with. James listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, thinking. "What makes your bakery different?" he asked finally. "Not in a business sense, but in your heart. What do you offer that the chain place never could?" The architects in seat Olivia had not expected the question, and she found herself really considering it. "Connection, I think. Every pastry I make, I put love into it." Sounds silly, but it is true. When Mrs. Patterson comes in for her birthday cake, I remember she likes vanilla with raspberry filling because that is what her late husband used to bring her. When the college student orders a coffee, I slip him an extra muffin because I know he is struggling to afford meals. It is not just transactions. It is relationships. "That is not silly at all," James said softly. "That is what makes places matter. That is what makes them worth saving." The food arrived, and it was as incredible as James had promised. They ate and talked. And Olivia learned that James was an architect who had spent the last 8 years in Boston before moving here. He had been married for 5 of those years to his college sweetheart, and the divorce had been finalized just 3 months ago. "We grew apart," he said, his voice carrying old pain that had softened into acceptance. She wanted the suburban house, the stable routine, the country club memberships. I wanted to design buildings that mattered, to take risks, to create something meaningful. We stopped understanding each other somewhere along the way, and by the end, we were just roommates who resented each other. Vulnerability and trust. Olivia reached across the table without thinking and touched his hand. That must have been incredibly difficult. Still is, sometimes. This whole blind date thing was my sister's idea. She said I needed to put myself out there, meet new people, remember how to be social again. I have been dreading it all week, rehearsing conversations, worrying about every possible awkward moment. And then I walked into the wrong place and met you. And this feels more natural than any of the scenarios I imagined. Life has a strange sense of humor, Olivia said, pulling her hand back, but not before James caught it gently. "Can I be honest about something?" he asked, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "When you first opened that door, covered in flour and looking exhausted, there was something in your eyes. A determination mixed with weariness that I recognize because I see it in my mirror every morning. You are fighting for something you believe in, even when it feels impossible. That takes courage." Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes and blinked them back quickly. "Some days I am not sure it is courage. Some days it feels more like stubbornness or stupidity. The best things in life require all 3, James said with a small smile. The comfortable silence, they finished dinner slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. The waiter brought dessert without them ordering, chocolate mousse with fresh berries, and they shared it between them. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from heavy topics to lighter ones. James told her about his disastrous attempts at assembling furniture in his new apartment. Olivia shared stories about her most demanding customers and the wedding cake disaster that had somehow turned into her best. Advertisement. There were moments of comfortable silence, too, where they simply sat and enjoyed the music, the wine. The feeling of being understood by someone who was essentially a stranger but somehow felt familiar. Olivia could not remember the last time she had felt this relaxed, as present in a moment without her mind racing ahead to problems and solutions and survival strategies. "What kind of buildings do you design?" she asked, watching the candlelight play across his features. "Mostly residential right now, though I hope to move into commercial eventually. I love the idea of creating spaces where people build their lives, where memories happen. Homes should feel like sanctuaries, places that reflect who you are and who you want to become." He paused, looking almost shy. "Actually, when I was looking at your bakery earlier, I noticed the layout. You have beautiful bones in that space, but the flow could be optimized. The display cases block the natural light from the windows, and your seating arrangement creates dead zones where customers would not naturally gravitate. Olivia sat up straighter. I never thought about it that way. I just arranged things where they fit when I moved in. Seeds of hope. James pulled a napkin from the holder and borrowed a pen from the waiter. May I? At her nod, he began sketching quickly, his hands moving with practiced confidence. If you moved the display cases here, customers would see your pastries immediately when they walk in, backlit by natural light. And if you rearranged the seating into clusters instead of straight lines, you would create intimate spaces that encourage people to linger. Small changes that could make a big difference in how people experience your bakery. Olivia watched his face as he drew, the concentration, the passion for his work evident in every line. This was not just polite dinner conversation. He genuinely cared about creating better spaces, and he was offering her something valuable without expecting anything in return. This is really thoughtful, she said when he finished, studying the sketch. But I cannot afford to hire an architect right now. I can barely afford my rent. I am not asking you to hire me, James said, pushing the napkin across to her. Consider it a thank you for saving me from a miserable evening of eating alone and questioning all my life choices. Plus, I love a good design challenge, and your space has so much potential. The exchange, the check arrived, and James insisted on paying despite Olivia's protests. You took a chance on a stranger who literally showed up at your door by mistake. The least I can do is buy you dinner. They walked out into the cool evening air, and Olivia realized she did not want the night to end. The street was quiet, just a few people passing by, and the city lights created a soft glow above them. Thank you for tonight, she said, meaning it more than she had meant anything in a long time. You have no idea how much I needed this. Same here, James said, his hands in his pockets, looking almost nervous again. I know this whole thing started because of a mistake, but I would really like to see you again. Intentionally this time, Olivia smiled, pulling out her phone. Give me your number. And maybe next time, I will actually cook something for you at the bakery. Show you what I can do when I am not covered in flour and contemplating bankruptcy. They exchanged numbers, and James insisted on walking her back to the bakery, even though it was only 4 blocks. They talked the entire way, discovering shared tastes in music and books, laughing about terrible movies they had both seen, finding more connections with each passing minute, the goodbye that felt like a beginning when they reached Sweet Haven. Olivia unlocked the door and turned to face him. The street was empty now, just the two of them standing in the glow of the bakery's exterior lights. This was the strangest, most unexpected night, she said, and also one of the best I have had in a very long time. James stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Can I take you to breakfast tomorrow? I know a place that does incredible crepes. I open the bakery at 6 in the morning, Olivia said, watching his face fall slightly. But you could come by around 8 when the morning rush dies down. I will make you the best coffee you have ever had, and we can talk more about your design ideas. If you are serious about helping. I am absolutely serious, James said, his smile returning full force. I will be there at 8 sharp. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, and kissed her cheek gently. The touch was brief, but sent warmth spreading through her entire body. Good night, Olivia Chen. Thank you for taking a chance on the guy who rang the wrong buzzer. Good night, James Mitchell. Thank you for showing up at exactly the right wrong moment. She watched him walk away, his hands back in his pockets, glancing back once to wave before turning the corner. Olivia stood there for a long moment, the napkin with his sketch clutched in her hand, feeling something she had not felt in months. Hope. Olivia woke up at 5 in the morning with more energy than she had felt in months. The alarm clock barely had time to complete its first ring before she was out of bed, pulling on her work clothes and mentally planning the morning's baking. She arrived at Sweet Haven while the city was still dark. Unlocking the doors and flipping on the lights that illuminated her little sanctuary, as she prepped ingredients and fired up the ovens, she caught herself humming. Actually humming. When was the last time she had done that? The dough felt different under her hands this morning, more cooperative, as if it sensed her improved mood. She made croissants, cinnamon rolls, her signature lemon scones, and a batch of chocolate chip cookies that filled the bakery with warmth and sweetness. By 7:30, the morning rush was in full swing. Her regular customers came through, and Olivia greeted each one with genuine warmth. Mrs. Patterson arrived for her usual vanilla scone and coffee, commenting that Olivia looked different today, brighter somehow. The college student she always slipped extra pastries to thanked her profusely. And even grumpy Mr. Henderson from the law office next door managed to smile when she remembered he liked his coffee extra hot. His arrival at exactly 8 o'clock. The bell above the door chimed. James walked in carrying a leather messenger bag and wearing a navy blue button-down shirt that made his eyes look even warmer. He spotted her behind the counter, and his entire face lit up with a smile that made her heart skip. "Good morning," he said, approaching the counter. "I brought my laptop and some design software. Figured if we are going to reimagine this space, we should do it properly." Olivia poured him a cup of coffee from her personal reserve, the expensive beans she usually saved for herself, and watched his face as he took the first sip. His eyes closed in appreciation. "This is incredible," he said. "What is this?" "Ethiopian yirgacheffe. Single origin. Light roast. I order it from a small importer in Seattle, actually. Costs more than I should spend, but some things are worth it." James opened his eyes and looked at her with such intensity that she felt heat rise to her cheeks. Some things definitely are. Working together, they spent the next 2 hours at her corner table. James pulling up design programs on his laptop, while Olivia sketched ideas on paper napkins between serving customers. He measured the space, took photos from different angles, and asked her dozens of questions about workflow, customer patterns, and her vision for the bakery. "What if we knocked out this half wall?" James suggested, pointing to a partition that separated the kitchen from the dining area. "Not completely, just enough to create a window where customers could watch you work. People love seeing their food being made. It creates connection and trust." Olivia had never considered it, but the idea excited her immediately. Like an open kitchen concept. "Exactly. And we could install floating shelves here to display your packaged goods instead of hiding them in that corner cabinet. Natural wood, warm lighting, creates visual interest and makes products more accessible." Between customers, Olivia would return to the table and find James had created another sketch, another possibility. He worked with focused intensity, occasionally looking up to observe customer flow, noting where people naturally walked and where they hesitated. He was not just designing for aesthetics. He was designing for her life, her business. Her dream the growing bond over the next 3 weeks. James became a fixture at Sweet Haven. He arrived every morning at 8, worked on designs until 10, then headed to his own job. He returned most evenings around 6, helping her close up, carrying supplies, fixing the wobbly table leg she had never gotten around to repairing. They fell into an easy rhythm, conversations flowing naturally from business to personal and back again. Olivia learned that James had a younger sister in Boston who called him every Sunday, that he was terrible at remembering to eat lunch when he got absorbed in work, that he loved old movies, especially film noir, and could quote entire scenes from Casablanca, that his marriage had ended not with drama, but with a quiet sadness. Both people realizing they wanted different futures, James learned that Olivia had moved to the city alone at 22 with nothing but determination and her grandmother's recipes, that she donated day-old pastries to the homeless shelter every evening, that she secretly wrote poetry in a notebook she kept under the counter, that her biggest fear was not failure itself, but letting down everyone who had believed in her. They did not talk about what they were becoming to each other. The labels felt unnecessary and somehow limiting. But there were moments that spoke louder than words. The way James's hand would find the small of her back when guiding her through a crowded sidewalk. How Olivia always made sure to save him the corner brownie, the one with extra frosting. The goodnight texts that stretched into hour-long conversations about everything and nothing. The crisis point, then came the morning that changed everything. Olivia arrived at the bakery to find an envelope taped to the door. Official letterhead. Formal language. Devastating message. Her landlord was raising the rent by 40% effective in 60 days. The building had been sold to a development company. Now they were converting the first floor into luxury retail space. She sat on the floor inside the bakery, back against the door, and let the tears come. 3 years of work, every dollar she had, every ounce of energy and hope. And it was ending because of numbers on a spreadsheet created by people who would never know or care what this place meant. Her phone buzzed. James texting his usual good morning message. She stared at it, then typed back something she had been avoiding saying for weeks. "Can you come over? I need to talk." He arrived 20 minutes later, still in sweatpants and a t-shirt. His hair uncombed, clearly having run the entire way. He found her still on the floor, the letter crumpled in her hand. The confession. James sat down beside her without a word, his shoulder touching hers, and waited. Olivia handed him the letter and watched his face as he read. Saw the anger flash in his eyes, the tightening of his jaw. "This is not right," he said finally. "There has to be something we can do." "A lawyer? Negotiation? Something?" "I already looked into it. The lease agreement allows for increases if the property changes ownership. It is all legal. All perfectly horribly legal." Her voice cracked. "I cannot afford 40% more rent, James. I can barely afford what I am paying now. This is it. Sweet Haven is done. No." James turned to face her fully, taking her hands in his. "No, we are not giving up. Listen to me. I have been running numbers for weeks while working on the designs. I see your books every day on that table. I know your margins, your costs, your potential. This place can succeed, Olivia. It just needs some strategic changes and maybe a different location. I do not have money for a different location. I do not have money for anything." The despair in her own voice scared her. The declaration. James was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was steady and sure. "Then let me invest in you."
In this?
"In us?" Olivia stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "I have savings. Money from selling the house in Boston. Money I have been holding on to because I did not know what to do with it. Let me be your partner. Not just in design, but in business. We find a new location, better terms, more foot traffic. We implement all the changes I have been designing. We do this right. James, I cannot ask you to risk your money on my failing business. You are not asking. I am offering." He squeezed her hands. "And it is not failing. You are not failing. You have created something beautiful here, something that matters to people. That matters to me. I spend every free moment here not because I am trying to save a business. I am here because being with you, building something together, feels more right than anything in my life has felt in years." The turning point tears were streaming down Olivia's face now, but they were different tears. "You barely know me. I know that you get up every morning at 5 to make sure Mrs. Patterson has her favorite scone. I know you slip money into the tip jar when you think no one is looking to help your part-time employee pay for textbooks. I know you cry during sappy commercials, but pretend it is allergies. I know the way you bite your lower lip when you are concentrating on a difficult design. I know you are the bravest person I have ever met because you keep showing up every single day even when it feels impossible." He reached up and wiped her tears with his thumb. "I know I am falling in love with you, and I want to build something real with you. Not just a bakery, a life." The words hung in the air between them, enormous and terrifying and perfect. Olivia had spent so long being strong, being independent, handling everything alone. The idea of letting someone in, really in, felt like stepping off a cliff. But looking at James, seeing the absolute certainty in his eyes, she realized that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be caught. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered. "And it scares me to death because I do not want to lose myself in someone else again." "You would not be losing yourself. You would be finding us." James stood up and pulled her to her feet. "I am not asking you to give up control or independence. I am asking you to let me stand beside you while you build your dream. Our dream, maybe if you will let it be." The decision. Olivia looked around the bakery. At the walls covered with local art, the mismatched furniture she had collected from thrift stores, the chalkboard menu in her own handwriting. This place had been her sanctuary, her identity, her proof that she could survive on her own terms. But maybe surviving was not enough anymore. Maybe it was time to start thriving, she said, and the word felt like jumping and flying at the same time. Okay, yes. Let us do this together. Find a new space, make it better, build something that lasts. James pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could feel his heart beat against her chest. We are going to make this work. I promise you. They spent the rest of the day researching available properties, creating spreadsheets, planning strategies. James called his sister, who worked in commercial real estate, and got advice. Olivia reached out to her loyal customers, explaining the situation and asking if they would follow her to a new location. The responses were overwhelming. Not just promises to support her, but offers to help spread the word, to invest small amounts. To be part of the journey, 6 months later, the new Sweet Haven opened on a bright Saturday morning in October. 6 months after that devastating letter, for months after Olivia and James signed a lease on a corner property with huge windows and twice the space. The line stretched around the block before the doors even opened. The redesign was everything James had envisioned and more. The open kitchen concept with the viewing window where customers watched Olivia work, the floating shelves displaying packaged goods and local artisan products, the seating arranged in intimate clusters that encouraged lingering, the warm wood tones and soft lighting that made everything feel like coming home. But the biggest change was behind the counter, where a new sign hung in elegant script: Sweet Haven Bakery and Design Studio, founded by Olivia Chen and James Mitchell. Olivia stood beside James as they watched customers stream in, her hand in his. Felt something she had not known she was missing. Completeness. Not because a man had saved her or fixed her problems, but because she had been brave enough to accept help, to build something together, to believe that love and partnership could make dreams bigger instead of smaller. Thank you for ringing the wrong buzzer, she said. Squeezing his hand, James turned and kissed her temple, his arm wrapping around her waist. Thank you for answering the door, and for saying yes to every adventure since then. Mrs. Patterson was their first customer, ordering her vanilla scone and coffee, and tearing up as she looked around. This is beautiful, dear. Your grandmother would be so proud. The college student came next, no longer struggling, but thriving. Offering to work part-time and help with social media, Mr. Henderson arrived with his entire law office, buying enough pastries for a week and leaving a tip that made Olivia gasp as the morning rush continued. James worked beside her, handling the register, chatting with customers, occasionally stealing quick kisses when he thought no one was looking. They had found their rhythm, their balance, their way of being together without losing themselves. That evening, after the last customer left and they locked the doors, James pulled out a small velvet box. Olivia's breath caught. I know it has only been 6 months, he said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond, and I know we should probably wait longer. But every morning I wake up certain of one thing. I want to spend the rest of my life building dreams with you. Olivia Chen, will you marry me? She did not hesitate, did not overthink, did not let fear win. Yes, absolutely yes. They stood in their bakery, their creation, their proof that wrong turns could lead to exactly the right places, and kissed while the city lights twinkled through the windows. Two people who had been lost had found each other by accident and built a life on purpose. And every morning after, when Olivia arrived at Sweet Haven at 5 in the morning to start baking, she remembered that sometimes the best things in life come through the wrong door at exactly the right moment. The end.